Today we have a new style of Vidped, a new method in which we are going to be there. Apart from me, we have 4 other people who are discussants of what I'm going to present. So I will lead off and I will present my ideas on an economic topic. The 4 discussants have seen my presentation and they're ready with their comments and questions. So after my presentation, they will come on and they will speak. And we'll have a discussion after that. Okay, so it's new. Let's see how it goes. Let me first ask the discussants. They've all done Vidpeds with me, so they are a bit familiar with me and I know them a little bit. Let's ask them. So let's ask Sidra, please start.
So first of all, thank you for allowing us to engage on this platform. I'm Sidra, I'm from Calcutta, and I did my undergraduate in physics from Delhi University. And after that, I switched to economics, and I did an MA in economics from IIFT Delhi. After which, I just started working recently, for which I've had to move to Bangalore now. So I've just moved to Bangalore, and I'm excited to start a new chapter in my life right now.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Sidra, for coming on the discussion panel, even though you are just settling into a new city. It's very helpful to have you here. Okay, Harshita, next, please.
Yes, so thank you for inviting me to be a part of this panel. I am Harshita and I am from Ludhiana. I have done economics honors from Delhi University. I have had a keen interest in fine arts, craft, and Zentangle work, due to which I have decided to turn this artwork into a business named the Art Horizons, in which I make customized handmade artworks.
Yeah, and she wants to sell them. I've seen them and they are good. So please buy them. Okay, let's have Sindhu next.
First of all, thank you. Thank you, sir, for inviting me to be part of this wonderful discussion. I am from Tirupur, the textile hub of India, and I work as a senior research analyst and the Indian manager of the firm, Infinite Sum Modeling, a reputed policy research firm based out of US and spread across the world. In this role, I work as a policy researcher in collaboration with several reputed international organizations and policy institutions. To name some of them: World Bank, Asian Development Bank, UN, International Rice Research Institute, lot of them. I have a versatile educational background. I did my bachelor's in electrical and electronics engineering, and then moved ahead to doing my master's in finance and business administration, where specializing in finance and operations. And I'm currently doing my PhD in international economics and public policy. I love writing, and I am a regular contributor to various columns and dailies. So that's all about me. And thanks again, sir. Thanks for inviting me here.
Yeah, and she forgot to say that she was born in a village which still doesn't have Wi-Fi. It's a remarkable journey. Shows her grit and determination to overcome tradition and remoteness and move to the global arena. So it's really, please see her Vidped. It's really fascinating. And her boss is, of course, a very versatile man, Badri. He travels, he used to work for Niti Aayog, and now he travels all across the world. And it's a great pleasure to have Sindhu here with us. So thank you, Sindhu. Okay, so Smit, you are next.
Hi, everyone. I am Smit Veer. I did my master's in economics from Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics in Pune. And as of now, I'm working as a consultant at Fractal Analytics. It's been a year. I'm handling an FMCG giant over here. So it's great working around. Besides that, I also have a small trekking and camping company called Evergreen Seekers, for which the operations are handed over to someone else. And lastly, I also write 2-minute read articles on Medium, so you can also check it out.
Okay. Well, unwittingly, we have today here the face of young modern India. And it is India because Sidra says she's from Calcutta, so we've got the East. Harshita is from Ludhiana, so we have the north. Sindhu is from Tamil Nadu, so we have the south. And Smith is from the west. We didn't plan it that way, but it has happened that way. It is actually the way it is nowadays, that the young people, they are from all parts of India, and they basically are ready to move to any part of India to be wherever they can get a job or employment or something. And it's really heartening to see this movement and this coming together so that we can have people from all parts. Okay, so let's get on to the business. Let me make my presentation. Let me share the screen. Let's see if I can do it. Okay. How the heck do I make it full? But instead of trying to, anyone can tell me quickly how to make it full?
Yes. Yes, sir. F5, if it's function F5 or F5.
Oh, F5, okay. Doesn't work, but never mind. Like, I think it's big enough that people can see it. They can also see it of my screen.
On the bottom of the screen, you'll have the presentation mode button, besides the zoom slicer.
Okay, there we are. All right, so we have now, so today is a very, very ambitious effort on my part. It's not only, so ambitious efforts can actually be quite foolish. So pardon me if it is foolish, but it is a very ambitious effort. 2 years ago, I wrote a book, India 2047. And after that, I've also been thinking of what India should be aiming for by 2047, the first 100 years. And so finally, a few days ago, I coined a name for my thinking. I called it Non-Official India Development Goals. Non-official, to emphasize that this has nothing to do with the government or with any other agency. It's just me doing the thinking and trying to present the goals. And the objective today is to discuss the goals overall, not to discuss any one particular goal. That we will do in successive sessions. Today, we just discuss whether the goals are right, meaningful, and are they complete, or we need to change them or edit them, amend them. So this is my first attempt to write these down, and let's see how we get comments from them. So let me present the goals. So I just summarize it by calling it NIDG, Non-Official India Development Goals. Number 1, make all Indians reasonably well off. Reasonably, to say that, look, we have only 24 years now, or a little less because August is already gone. We cannot make everybody quite well off. So I'm just being qualitative here, not being quantitative. And then there are 5 sub-goals. So they reflect, in a way, the priority. So create millions of reasonably paying jobs for young people of all skill levels. Because today we cannot say that all the kids coming out of, young kids coming out of school will have a very good education. They won't. And there will be different skill levels, but once they are 18, 19, 20, some 16, they will want some employment, at least most of them. And if there aren't enough jobs for them, then we are in trouble. If the young people are not able to get jobs, then they won't be well off. And reasonably paying, it's an undefined term, what's reasonable, but deliberately it's undefined here because we can have a discussion about what is reasonably paying in big cities, small cities, villages, etc. That discussion we can have, and the idea is to stimulate that discussion. Number 2, attain sustained high average real GDP growth rates. When China was rising, they were growing at 10% GDP for years to come. And that's what has made China where it is now. And we have never hit 10%. And the highest we have ever hit is like 8%. And currently we are at 6.5. And that is too low, I think. So that's my point here. Number 3, keep economic inequalities in check. And more importantly, promote equality of opportunity for all. If we don't have equality of opportunity, some people are more favored than others when they are young, then we will not, those who are not favored, they will not be well off. And if the goal is to make everybody well off, then there must be equality of opportunity. So a lot of discussion takes place about equality of income, but I want to say my focus is also on equality of opportunity. And provide targeted subsidies as needed. It's one thing to say the government shouldn't have subsidies, but the reality in India is that there are subsidies because some people will still remain poor or they can't afford or whatever reason, but they should be targeted, efficient, and so on. And keep local and global pollution in check. So this is the main economic domestic agenda that I want to propose as the agenda for India in 2047. Second, NIDG 2, improve the quality of life for all. Because economic growth is just economic growth. It's very important, but it's not improving the quality of life. And for this, we need what I've called here as efficient, effective, responsive governance. So all governments, that is national, state, panchayati, and city administration, which is municipalities, they should be efficient, effective, responsive for all. Okay, so that's 2.1. I'm not very good at making PowerPoints. So what is written there in red is actually also in 2.1, but that's just me. Okay, so what does it mean? It means what's written as 2.2 should be 2.1. Provide needed quality public, and I've put non-rivalrous there to indicate that I'm using here public goods as defined in economics, not what people think of as public goods. This is non-rivalrous public goods and services efficiently. So this means national defense, it means a judiciary system, it means which includes contracts and so on. It also would mean, you know, clean air and clean water, because that's non-rivalrous. If the air is clean, then my using the clean air doesn't reduce the clean air for you. So all public goods as defined in economics, they are provided by the government. They should be provided with efficient, effective, it says effect, it should say effective and responsive governance. Okay. And number 2, create world-class public agencies. Public agencies meaning you have to go to the government for getting permits, for licenses, for agreements, passports, marriage certificate, death certificate, anything that you want, and including utilities, meaning telephone, water, electricity, and you know, even transport, etc., would be included here. So all utilities like railways, if it's owned by the government, that should be a world-class, because there's not a public good. Railways is rivalrous. So public agencies, including utilities, should be efficient, effective, and responsive. Okay. We don't have them now, but we should have them in the future. Okay, go to number 3, if I can get, okay. So the first and second goals are domestic. They are not international. So the third one is international, and become a leading worldwide economic power. We have the capacity, we have built for so many years the base. We have ISRO. ISRO didn't start 5 years ago. ISRO started in the 1960s. We have the IITs, we have the IIMs, we have the Delhi School of Economics, we have IGIDR. All these places started long ago, and they have built enough capacity for us to now, though we didn't have the economic growth in the past, we do have the capacity. We did produce people who are running, who are CEOs in the US of large companies. We have the guy who was created in 1960. He's the head of the World Bank. So we do have the people, and the younger people are actually very good, people like you who are here. So we should become a leading worldwide economic power. And there are three sub-goals to it. One, become competitive with China, which is our real competitor. We should stop thinking of competing with anybody else. And we should be a regional leader. So region means India and its neighboring countries. We should use international markets to our benefit, meaning we shouldn't cut off imports and we shouldn't cut off exports randomly and whimsically, but keeping domestic consequences in mind. One thing all economists have learned in recent years is, which we always knew, but we never really focused on, that international trade and international finance has domestic consequences. Today, we are talking about Make in India with foreign money coming in, but everything has domestic consequences, and we must keep those domestic consequences in mind. And lastly, a symbolic goal, but which represents behind it is a lot of thinking and lot of creativity and work. Make the rupee an international currency. You are not a leading world economic power if your currency is not an international currency. Okay, so those are my three goals. And let me stop here and turn it over to the discussants. So we have agreed, we are going with Sidra first. So over to you, Sidra.
Thank you. For giving us this space. So I being from a non-economics background, when I started in IIFT, it's mostly
Could you
a
bring the
specialized.
mic closer to you so that we can hear you better? Yeah.
Yes, yes. So when I started studying in IIFT, it was mostly there was a heavy focus on finance and trade. So we studied a lot about liberalization and opening up of trade for that being one of the main sources or one of the main channels through which we can increase our growth rate, the GDP growth rate of our GDP. But there was one particular course in development economics that like particularly stuck with me. Like it was a major eye-opening moment for me when our professor recommended that we read some of the papers presented by Jean Reze. So he talked about the importance of health and nutrition as a contributing factor for development. So I thought it was like a major eye-opening moment for me because I thought that how could something so basic and fundamental that reflects our well-being be like uh, missing from the discourse around development and economic growth. So I just wanted to highlight like what the importance of nutrition um, could be for how it could impact our growth rate and how it could what are the channels through which it could affect our economic growth. So first of all, there's an obvious increase in productivity that comes with better nutrition levels. There is better health amongst children, and then there's also better educational outcomes. So if you're properly nourished, you can focus more, you can take more from your classes. All of these are the positive outcomes. So obviously there is like enough motivation to fix this concern of undernourishment. Now, having said that, we know that India has maintained a very high GDP growth rate over the last couple of uh, over the last decades, over the past couple of decades. But unfortunately, it has not, the GDP growth rate has not been in tandem with a reduction in undernourishment. So there has been almost like very insignificant change in the proportion of underweight children over the last 30 years. And this, according to the NFHS surveys done in 2019 and 20, there's still 35.5% or something around that number. That is the proportion of children who are still underweight. So so this is like it's particularly alarming because why is undernourishment not reducing in the backdrop of very high GDP growth rate? So, I mean, there are schemes in place to resolve this issue. So, I mean, we can look towards programs like I think the midday meal scheme, that is a very effective program to address this concern. And it was the midday meal scheme. It was made legally enforceable in public schools in 2001, and I just thought it could be a. It is obviously not the solution or the way out, but to address this problem of undernourishment, but it has had very serious positive outcomes. It has not only enhanced child nutrition, it has also increased the enrollment of girl students, and it has also eased tensions along caste lines among students because everybody sits at the same table and they're sharing a meal. So these have all been the benefits. Like, not only has it had economic or benefits, physical benefits or physiological benefits, it has had economic and social benefits as well. So this addressing the nutritional needs of the population and linking it with existing rights and making, like, perhaps working towards a future where it becomes a right, like the right to education or like the right to work in some states. I think that could have a very positive outcome for our growth and development. These were just my thoughts so
Well,
far.
thank you, Sidra. Very briefly, I will say I agree with you, and I'll show you where it is in my NIDGs later.
In the
Okay, I'll show that later, but let's have Harshita.
Yes, sir. So I think that the goals for India for 2047 have been well articulated by you. So in the present context, the Indian economy is faring well if we look at the global economic issues. Like this can be seen from the growing pace of international investments in which India is the important player. For instance, in the semiconductor industry or the biofuel sector, as well as multinational economic corridors. So the third developmental goal is being implemented and it needs to be enhanced at a faster pace. But certainly, India's internal goals have a scope for expansion. I agree with you that instead of targeting high real GDP growth, priority must be given to the average GDP, that is real GDP per capita, because India stands at the bottom among the top 10 economies of the world if we take the per capita income into consideration. Also, the measures which would be taken to improve this metric would be really important to keep the rising income inequality in check. And it has been published in various reports that a sustained GDP growth rate of around 7% for the coming decades is needed. And about the second economic goal for enhancing and improving the institutions of India, I think the institution which needs to be looked upon is the banking sector, as there are issues in this sector regarding write-offs or capitalism favors and other operational failures. So these need to be corrected so that the available resources can be distributed among the not so well off sections as well as channeled into productive investments, which will build the infrastructure of our country. So I feel that banking is one agency which must be referred to specifically for future discussions in order to turn it into a world-class agency as told by you. Also, for the second goal, cooperative federalism must be listed as a separate sub-goal because, as we know, India is a diverse nation, so it becomes imperative to ensure that the center and states function smoothly for the welfare of the citizens. And any ambiguity in policy implementation or management of power sharing needs to be a point of focus so that we can get a policy consensus at the center state level and the policies can be implemented successfully. I think that the underlying factor which can make it tough to achieve the goals efficiently if overlooked is that crucial economic spending is getting sidelined due to short-term political gains, and it is leading to shortage of funds for the necessary economic spending. So, sir, do you think that reallocation of resources should also be a developmental goal? And also for financing these resources, the usual tax-based approach should not be looked into because it becomes counterproductive for large sections of the society, given the current scenario with very high inflation rates. So I think a workable solution for enhancing the government budget through alternative resources is also needed. This is what I could gather from the goals presented by you.
Okay, thank you so much, Harshita. I will just say that if you have read my book, it says there one of the key goals that I listed for the union government is to improve the financial sector. We need a world-class financial sector, but that's a means to achieving something. Okay, so when we write out in detail the goals as to how they will be achieved, then one of the key means is to improve the financial sector. And if you read my book, you will see that one of the key goals that I have listed for the union government is to improve the financial sector, which is actually not in good shape at all. But let me not talk much yet. Let's have Sindhu.
So first of all, I would like to congratulate you for putting up the goals in a very concise manner. And for some reason, it did not look unofficial at all. They for sure look official because, when we started with this 5 trillion target, say into 2020 or 21, people spoke of it as very ambitious, but now that we are getting closer to it. So I think by 2047, the 25 trillion goal, I think we should be able to achieve it. It might not be mechanical as often it's like considered, but it might require concerted efforts from all levels of institutions, government, the both state and central governments. But still, it looks achievable. Given that we are nearing the 5 trillion target, by 2025. And you have covered, almost all your goals were like very holistic. They did cover the standard of living, the quality of life, and also about the India becoming a commanding power in the global economy, given its stature, in terms of its economical presence. And before I start, to making comments about or making additions to the goals or diving deeper into the goals that you have put forth, I think that we have, stood the COVID-19 impact, that we had the V-shaped recovery following the COVID-19. And then the Russia-Ukraine war that distorted the supply chains and led to energy crisis and supply chain crisis everywhere, and the global slowdown that is hitting the major economies across the world. I think we are at a far better position, growing at around 6.5%, and this really is a testament to the resilience of the Indian economy. So maybe we should first acknowledge that, and then coming to the points that you had put forth, I think this could be also a sub point to what you had put forth, but I just wanted to make this out. Achieving all this standard of living, the quality of life, and even the commanding power to an extent, I think it requires, technological leadership at the global scale. And when we opened up economies our economy in 1991 and liberalization was gaining prominence, I think we did open up the economy, but when we take the inputs that are being fed into the manufacturing sector, say in terms of land, power, infrastructure, logistics, and all that, I think we were not able to, compete. We were not able to enhance to that level where we can compete with the firms from global powers. So that is the case. If you see India's GDP, it was more agriculture oriented in the previous decade, but it has come down to becoming service oriented, but it does not become manufacturing. The manufacturing sector had not got its real boost, as is the case with major economies if we take. So that's one point I wanted to make, becoming technological, exercising technological leadership, leveraging automation, the shift in energy sector, from non-renewables to using renewables, and the infrastructural boost. I think this would solve a lot of problems that we are facing, say from the digitalization, accessibility of internet, electricity, to enhancing the quality of our living. So that's the first point I wanted to make up. And then coming to, there's this, as far as I have been observing the Indian economy, I see this vicious cycle in terms of this labor force and the demand for labor force. So firms are are pessimistic about investing in India, skeptical about investing in India, because they fear accessibility to skilled labor force. On the other hand, we have a lot of people moving out of India, to access to becoming the top executives and CEOs in reputed global firms. And also we have a huge population that's getting graduated every year from reputed educational institutions, but they do not have. So there's the gap. There's a clear gap in terms of the skills requirements, the skills that's being possessed by the graduates and those that's being required by the industries. So I think that's an important point that India should be focusing on as to how it can reform its education sector. I think the new education policy should be equipped enough to solve that. But that's one goal that India should be working on, because for India to, as we often say, this rich becoming richer and the poor not becoming, not able to cope up to the the standards. I think for the poor coming from a rural background, as I have seen what's happening in the villages here in India, the remotest corners in India. So I could make a comment on that. That if I think there's a huge scope for improving education as well as health sectors in India, and this both education and health is a concurrent subject. I think both the central governments and the state governments must shoulder the responsibility of improving education and health. And there's also this another goal, not a goal, but maybe a concern, where when we take the growth trajectory of major developed economies like US or China, they did grow. When they were growing, they did not have this problem of climate change, the climate goals, the nationally determined targets and all that. But for us to grow, I think we have to grow incompatible. I mean, when we grow, I think we also have to be conscious of those targets. And it's going to take a different trajectory altogether to get there. So we might not be able to benchmark the goals, the kind of policies that any other developed country had already adopted, but we might have to work on our own things to ensure that there is a balance between growth and also these climate targets and all that is being spoken about now. And yeah, so that's with the major points we wanted to make up. And improving the business climate, I think it's already being taken care of to a major extent, because being an observer in the previous decade to this decade, I see a major change brought about by the digitalization. There's so much of transparency, say from direct benefit transfers to being this license Raj, which was hindering the business growth in the previous decade. I think with online moving to online and introducing digitalization, it has increased the transparency, and there's a huge scope for businesses to get the license, and it's the process of setting business in India. I think it's become far easier than it used to be when we did not really have access to digitalization. So I think India should overall focus, though your goals are like the broader ones that we should achieve, I've just broken down them into, exercising this technological leadership and skills gap and improving education and health sector. Yeah, so that's all.
Okay, Sindhu, thank you so much for putting the substance. Of course, I will get down to each goal and we'll discuss each goal in detail. That's where the details will come. But you are already providing some of the details that are necessary. To your point of manufacturing, where it says competitive with China, implicit in it is that we should be able to have manufacturing, okay, that is world class. Okay, so those are just one level below, and when we discuss, then we will come to it. So the goals in my mind have to be very, very broad and general, and then we need to write under each goal how it will be and what it means. And the health and education comes under equality of opportunity, because you don't have equality of opportunity if the child is stunted and doesn't have the education. So more broadly speaking, we have equality of opportunity, and under it you mean how are you going to achieve it? Well, if you are stunted, like Sidra was pointing out, 35%, we are number, by the way, which I fully agree with, but most people say, Subodh, you are lying. It's not there. I said, no, I'm not lying. It's the sad truth. And so if you are stunted, obviously you don't have equality of opportunity. I always say, look, if you are a Narega family kid, what is your equality of opportunity? Your parents are just living on the subsidy. And how do you expect those kids to be productive and well off by 2047? So thank you, Sindhu. This is very good. Let's hear from Smith. Then I can talk a bit more and we can have a discussion.
Surely, surely. So I see most of points are actually covered, and that's pretty good that we are covering most of the points. So yeah, so from my side, if we see the goals which you mentioned, India actually has a national policy running for each and every goal that you mentioned, and that is actually good. So if we start with employment, we have the Skill India mission, we have Make in India, we have Startup India, and so on and so forth. If we come towards GDP, we have the infrastructure pipeline in place. Then, of course, we have the GST. That's also good. Then this is how it goes ahead. So we have a policy plan for each and every goal that's actually defined, and that's really nice. Coming back to Sidra's point, which she mentioned about the midday meal scheme, and that's actually very useful. It is actually a part of the social inclusive policy goals which India is looking forward. And lastly, I would also like to talk about what the crucial economic spending is being wasted, as what Harshita mentioned it rightly. I would also like to mention that, so let's say in China, the elections are every 10 years, but back in India, the elections are every 5 years. And this is what currently is also going about, that if there are elections taking place every 5 years, make all the state level elections as well as the district level elections going together. Because what happens is, let's say the 5-year election gets completed. Again, in the next 2 years, there is some district level elections going on. There's some village level elections going on. So India being a country in those entire 5-year development phase, we have elections every year going on, somewhere or somewhere else. So this is how the majority of the money goes into elections, and somewhere, somehow, the development is being hampered over there. Coming back to the point where manufacturing is being skipped was mentioned by Sindhu. That's exactly correct. India skipped, not exactly skipped, but yes, most of the manufacturing phase, and we directly came up to the service industry phase. So that's how I also see in most places we are being doing. So let's say now we are shifting from petrol to straight away to electric vehicles. But India skipped a middle part of ethanol blending. So we have flex fuels running back in US as well as in Brazil. So most countries have around 8 to 10% of petrol, and the next component is being ethanol. So India also skipped that stage and is now emphasizing on ethanol blending as well, and also going back to going towards electricity power. So that's where we can also see that it's being developed, some part of it. And lastly, talking about climate change, there are consulting companies everywhere coming up that we want ESG solutions. So basically, all solutions which we give forward to clients should be based out of considering the climate impact as well. So this is how the overall progress is being done outside, and I feel that we are on the right track, and some expedient in all this can, reach our target as well. So
okay. Thank you, Smith. Okay, so anybody else wants to comment before I come in? Say something that you forgot to say, or you heard others say and you want to jump in? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Smith. What I want to say is that we have to be very careful. Okay. And good is not good enough. That's my slogan. Good is not good enough. So if you look at it and say we have a policy and it's a good policy, my response is good is not good enough. We need excellence. We need detailed implementation to work. We cannot just say, look, we have a skills mission, we have this, we have that. Is it really world class? That's why I wrote that goal of public agencies and public utilities. Is it now the telecoms, when I do internet Vidpeds, if it rains heavily in Mumbai, there's no video. I've had to postpone two in Mumbai, two videos because the rains came and there's no video. Okay. And when I connect to people in rural areas as part of an NGO, I cannot hear more than 50% of what they say because the audio is so poor. So you can say, yes, we have internet, we have broadband, but it's not, we can say, and it's good that we have internet, but it's not good enough. And I asked, in this Haryana village, I asked the young people there that how often do you get power cuts? And they just laughed at me and said, will you please ask how often we get electricity? So, we can say, if you look at the rankings, we have electricity, we have electrified, but good is not good enough. India needs to hit, in cricket terms, we need to hit 4s and 6s, not score singles and 2s anymore. Okay, we just got 6.5%. Well, China was at 10% for 10 years. So 6.5% is the world leader, but it's not good enough to achieve what we want to achieve by 2047. So I just want to say that we need to be very clear that everything needs to be world class. We just cannot have a policy and then we say, okay, we have a policy, we have a program. We have so many programs to support medium, small, and micro enterprises. And, in my Lift Up India, we are looking at small towns. And the situation, medium is okay, but when you look at the small and micro, they're in really terrible shape. Though there are hundreds of government schemes, there's a district industry center, there's a general manager there, there are, the schemes, Mudra for giving loans. And yet when you go and see those, so you can say, well, we are doing it. But when you see the reality, and I've talked to so many people on this, my series now, when they say we go out to the villages, sir, the schemes don't reach the people. The situation is so different. They really don't have everything that they are supposed to get. Yes, the digitalization of benefits, which Sindhu mentioned. Yes, DBT is very good. All these things are, as I say, good, but good is not good enough. So that's my short summary, that when we look at our schemes and policies, we need to see the outcomes. And this was the point driven home by one of the people I did Vidped with, and she's gone out to rural Nagaland, rural Maharashtra, and she says, sir, it's not good enough there. It's just not working that well. And you don't get the impact that the policy is aimed for. And there isn't enough thinking. So anyway, that's just my one response to some of the points that have been made. And all of these points, if you read in detail my book, most of them are there. So, I'm in agreement with what you are saying, but we need to, I just wanted to start at a high level in terms of stating the goals and then move down to say where each particular action, what is it contributing to? So unlike under equality of opportunity, we obviously have health, education, and nutrition, and midday meals. And Akshay Patra is really world class. And by the way, midday meals, as some, I forget Sidra said, it really brings girls because then they don't have to, the food is short at home. And if the girls go to school, at least they get to eat, right? So that is really a well-known fact. And even in Washington, D.C., when we had the lockdown, shutdown, and the midday meals were not there in the schools. So, schools provide subsidized meals for low-income parents. And then just after a week or so, people realized that, the low-income people, they are losing their jobs, plus the kids are losing the midday meal, which can be quite a substantial part of their actual eating. And then people set up midday meal counters where, you could just come and get the meal for anybody. And obviously there was no system, just come and take, for heck of it. And my brother in Maharashtra, in Pune also, and in Mumbai, they were putting out these midday meals through CSR, right? Just take it, please. If you are short of income, you are short of going to school, so just have the meal. So it's very important. All these things we can do, and we do, but we need to be world class, and we are not world class. We are not really scoring the sixes that we need. We need to score 3 4s and 3 6s in 1 over, right? Something like that in cricket terms. We really need to do that. So that's a key point from me, that look, good is not good enough. Okay, we need, and we can't say, oh, it comes slowly, it'll come over time. I don't have the luxury of time anymore. I'm old. And 24 years is not that long. It isn't that long. If you say, look, we are just starting on it now. We are starting on hydrogen, and maybe hydrogen will be there in 10 years. Well, that's 10 years gone, guys. And, if you are not set up properly by, say, 2037, okay, 10 years before, if you are not all ready with your infrastructure and your education, and so you really have only 13, 14 years to reach the input being brought up to a level where they can produce results later. If you don't have your inputs ready by around 12 years from now, 13 years from now, then you won't see any results. If you say, oh, our schools will improve by 2037, well, these kids whom you didn't teach well, they will be there in 2047, and what jobs will they get? So how can everybody be reasonably well off? So that's sort of my thinking that I want to emphasize, that speed is of essence. Speed is of essence. We don't have 100 years for 2047. We have 24 years. Speed is essential, and it should work very well. It shouldn't work like GST, which is being amended every day, right? Which we don't know how to do. It's a great idea. Nobody's fighting it, but does it really first come in and have a negative effect on the small enterprises? Then you say, oh, they will recover. But you lose all these years, and you don't have the job creation. And once you hit 25 and you don't have a good job, your career is gone. It's now, you're not going to suddenly say, oh, at 30, I've become productive. I've now got a good job, because you lost those 10 years where, and the parents also are sacrificing so hard to put their kids through all this. And, they want some money, and you don't have that money. You set in motion, then they get married and they don't have enough for their kids. So as I say, speed is of essence. It is essential. Okay, it's enough from me. It's not really my place to talk. Let's see if you have any comments. Okay, it looks like there's general agreement that India is on a good path, and certainly it is. But and we have very specific goals that you listed. And as we go through the details of the 3 NIDGs, they will come up, I hope, and we will see how the specific things that you mentioned lead to those goals. Okay, so that there is a overall top level vision, and then we can go down, the cooperative federalism. That's very much in my book. It starts off by laying out in chapter 2. Harshita has read it very carefully. It lays out the functions of the state under the constitution, the states list, the concurrent list, and the union list. And so that is there. And the technology, that is my other key goal for the union government in my book, that we need to really lead in technology. Battery storage is something that we are not in the picture worldwide. You read all over the world, we are not in the picture. Electric vehicles, we are making them, but China is so far ahead in electric vehicles today. They're in fact going to, Europe is already begging China, please don't sell your vehicles here. Okay. because our companies cannot compete. So they are going to swamp the world with the lower cost electric vehicles in 3 or 4 years. Yes, Tata makes them, Mahindra makes them, but they are not world class. And even in the vaccine, we are good because we made those vaccines, which were shared with many countries, but we did not do the research that created the formula that we still had to buy and borrow. Why not? We have enough qualified scientists who can do the work and who can create the That's an area of pharma. India is a leader. We make generic pills, but we are not creating the technology that goes into the generic means somebody already created the drug. Now we are just making a copy of it because the patent has expired, right? And also there are some deep concerns that the Indian drugs are not world class. In one African country, so many kids died because they took those. So, okay, so what I'm saying in short is good is not good enough. We need to be top class. And you people are world class. That's what I'm seeing. And the young people are world class. I don't see any better people than what I see here. And yet we don't get the results. So that is a fundamental problem of Indian society, that it is too top down, doesn't give enough power and responsibility to young people who are really very good. I mean, not all, of course. I'm saying there's enough of them like you who are actually able to deliver. So that's it from me for this. As usual, I talk too much. That's why I try to have a rule that you people will talk first. Let's hear some responses to all of it. And otherwise, we come back next Sunday. But for the moment, let me hear from you. Sindhu, you always have something to say, so please, let's listen.
No, I think wonderful string of thoughts. You had put out the comments as well, as you know, as you had articulated the goals. I think you had put out the comments as well in a wonderful fashion. Yeah, I think as you pointed out, we require a holistic transformation, not an incremental one, but a radical one in terms of because economical transformation or economical goal is interlinked to several aspects, not just the economics at the broader level. Say it's interlinked to politics, technology, businesses, everything, the quality of life that we lead, so everything. So I think it requires a fundamental transformation, as you said, to achieve the goals that we have listed for 2047, when we achieve the 100th year of independence. I think yeah, I agree with you that it requires a very radical transformation in all sense, and becoming a technological leadership. I would like to stress on that, because that has the power to transform a lot of things that we are talking about. Say you know uh, economical aspects, the quality of life, uh, the healthcare, the education, everything. So when COVID emerged, had we had the internet penetration been deeper, I think the educational losses would not have been as worse as it was, right? So that's, I think the technology has the ability to solve a lot of our problems. And yeah, attaining technological leadership should be the primary goal for us to get there.
Okay, thank you. So, Sidra, any comments? Closing remarks, as they say in the court, closing comments. I'm not going to speak after this. You have the last word, okay? So,
No, so I mean, pretty much
just
agreed.
bring your, yeah.
Yes, yes. So I mean, I was just writing down, noting down the points that were being made by everyone on this panel, and yes, I was agreeing with most of them. But one thing that particularly stood out to me was when Sindhu mentioned that there is very like high quality students going out for jobs, but somehow there's a lack of employment amongst highly educated youth also like a little prevalent here. So that gap, there is a missing link. I think that's what, if I understood correctly, there's a gap between in that, like there's no explanation for that. So I was also just wondering that yes, we have very high caliber students who those who go abroad, they can like reach, they can create impact or have like better educational outcomes. Meanwhile, those who stay here, it takes a little longer, or maybe like they get delayed outcomes from that. So I was just thinking about that. I was letting that sink in for now.
Okay, thank you. All right, Harshita, please. Any?
Yes, sir, I agree with the points which have been given. As you also said that good is not good enough and speed is of essence, I think that the thing we need to look upon is the strength of the institutions as they form the software of the economy. So the institutions at the government level, at or large scale and small scale level, they need to like work in an enhanced manner and remove all the bottlenecks which come in between while announcing the specific policy and when it reaches the hands of the people. So this can be of importance. Also, like mentioned by Sidra, we need to give priority to health, and it was also a point of focus after the COVID struck. So it will be important and it will get transformed into the human development, which will enhance the ability of people to become efficient, and they will like become productive and be able to lead in the job creation as well as work for the Indian economy and even at the global scale. So I think health should also be given necessity.
Okay, thank you. Smit, final words.
Yeah, so in the end, I feel everything boils down to implementation only. We have great minds in place, we have great ideas in place, we have laid it down well, and in the end, it's all about implementation. So if we implement each and idea everywhere, each and every policy everywhere, and of course, hitting 4s and 6s in each and every policies which prepare. So if that goes well, then yep, we are there.
So that's implementation. When you hit a 4 and a 6, that's implementation. When you don't
Yes.
score, that's poor implementation. Okay, well, thank you all so much. I think we have done a very good session. Let's end the recording today, and I'll be back with you 1 week from now. We'll discuss the first goal in detail. So, okay, bye everybody, and thank you once again.